Greetings petrolheads, welcome back to Automation the Car Company Tycoon game, and today we're gonna be going into another round of entry overviews. We got 3 more cars today. Yesterday it seems like the Colugo was the car that got the most votes, and so that one will be going up against the winner of the first round of reviews, which was the Rondini Raven. And today we're going to be looking at the Nubanu 420 FR by Atomic Bombs, and then we're going to be looking at the Kika Twist by Boost and Ethanol, and the Tassale Mark II by Rush D. Alrighty then. So the Nubanu 420 FR. It's a 5-seater, standard interior, rear drive, single clutch, also a manual gearbox, and the wishbones all around. We've seen that before. It's a 2.5 liter V6, and I think this is the first time we're seeing a V6 making 180 horsepower. So let's check out that engine. It's full aluminum. It's got 4 valves per cylinder, a VVL, and very low stroke, so that is something you can definitely do in order to increase horsepower, is just increase the stroke. And cast internals, so if you wait, let me check something. Okay, so it does have a couple of RPM left over even with those cast internals. However, the cast internals can't really take that much torque, especially the pistons and conrods. So if you were to turbocharge it, you'd need to upgrade those internals. VVT on all cams, and we have seen that this thing also has VVL. So it's got the VTEC on a 2.5 liter V6, 8.5 compression, 30 cam profile, so that's very moderate, and then 70 VVL profile, which is a little bit aggressive, but by no means too much. We got twin configuration, which is interesting. So apparently he couldn't really decide whether to go with a single or a frontal per cylinder, and he went for the option in between. And we've got tubular headers, a single exhaust pipe, and then 1 straight through and 1 reverse flow muffler, making an 180 horsepower, 152 pound-feet of torque. Not the most impressive numbers we've seen so far, of course, but it's reliable. And let's check out the other stuff. 6-speed manual. Wow, and it takes 4th gear in order to reach 100 kilometers an hour. That's interesting. Medium compound rotars, 205s up front, 215s on the rear, 16-inch alloys, and then we got vented discs all around, so no problems really with cooling. Really small rear brakes again. That's the automation calculations coming in for you. Fully clad on the tray, some wing angle on the rear and a little bit on the front as well. This looks like, for 1998, it looks a little modern. It looks more like 2004, 2005-ish, but I think it's still fine. It looks very clean, very, pretty simple. I like the indicators on the inside of the headlights, and the little fog lights down there. Also the way that, the main grille and the bottom grille are pretty much, a similar shape, but not quite the same. And it's got a similar one of those on the back as well, as a sort of, rear bumper. Way more cooling than the engine needs. So that is presumably to prepare for a twin turbo upgrade. We get 5 seats, standard interior, standard CD entertainment, all driver assists, and basic 90 safety. I think that's the same. I think that's the first time we've seen basic safety, but that's okay. I mean, it does make 35 safety, so it's totally fine. Gas monotube dampers, semi-active sway bars, and then I'd say a reasonably sporty tune, but the rear sway bar isn't very stiff. So for more sportiness, you would increase that as well. We get almost 70 drivability now, but just under 30 sportiness. So maybe this isn't the sort of sports car. Maybe this is more of the sort of you know, 3 Series coupe, if you will. Although the 3 Series was a pretty sporty saloon family, but this is basically a coupe that's based off on a family saloon, and it's, you know, it's fine that way. Those things make a pretty good platform mostly in order to upgrade. But what you do need to keep in mind is that this thing weighs like 1400 kilograms, which is the heaviest car here so far, I think. That's because it's not made from lightweight materials. It's got corrosion-resistant steel panels. Costs 17,760, so that's a pretty average price, relatively cheap. But now we're gonna get into performance, where I think this car isn't gonna do so well. But let's see. Yep, certainly the slowest car here so far. 16.2 quarter mile. And automation track. $237.4. Wow, that's pretty slow, man. Running costs? Sort of middle of the road. It's not the cheapest, it's not the most expensive, but what this thing does have going for it is the really high drivability and a very reliable engine. Interesting, man. This is one of the more normal cars here. This is a sort of, you know, I don't want to say it's a kind of C-Class coupe or something like that, but it does really feel like a regular family saloon where you just removed the 2 rear doors and then put, you know, this little lip on the back. It does have its advantages though, so let's look at the other cars for now. Next up, the Kika Twist. Oh, that's another S2000 body. Let's see what it's made of. It's a 2-seater standard interior, aluminium monocoque and aluminium panel, so this is gonna be light. Rear-wheel drive, 5-speed manual, double wishbones all around, and yeah, it is light, 917 kilograms. It's got a 2-liter naturally aspirated inline-4, and it only makes 122 horsepower. Let's check this one out. So this one is sort of the first. This is the first car that's sort of a Miata approach, if you want to call it that. It's like you buy the car and it's not super fast, but it's light. It's gonna be handling well, and of course you can modify it afterwards. That's the sort of general philosophy I have of this so far. 4 volts per cylinder, full aluminium, 2-liter straight 4. Again, really low stroke. And cast internals, they're sufficient for what the engine is right now, but if you were to turbocharge it, you would need to upgrade them. I think they would be fine if you just did some NA tuning though. Wow, compression is really low. You get a lot of fuel octane left to play with still. It's got single point injection rather than multi-point, so that's also interesting. I mean, it's cheaper, yeah, but also worse. 14.0 to 1 fuel mixture, RPM limit of 6900 RPM, and short cast headers. So definitely you can also increase power by upgrading your headers. Yep. And then baffled mufflers. Alright, they're cheap. We got a 5-speed manual, we got a viscous limited slip diff. We got medium compound road tires, 205s all around, 15-inch alloy rims. And then we got solid disc brakes, front and rear, and we do have brake fade, so... it's another one of those cases where smaller rear brake size does make for better drivability, however it also causes the brakes to fade more. Interesting. 55 wing angle on the rear, 50 up front, and then more than enough cooling. The only driver assist you get is power steering, and then you have 2 seats, standard interior, basic cassette entertainment, and standard 90s safety. So this is one of the last cars that in the year 2000 would still come with a cassette player rather than a CD player. But it's fine. But you know, if this car isn't fun enough to drive, if it's not entertaining enough to drive, then well, maybe you're gonna wanna swap out the cassette player for a CD player anyway. That's not very expensive. Progressive springs, gas monotube dampers and passive sway bars, so a very basic and cheap setup here. And a relatively normal setup here on the suspension. Making 45 drivability, again, don't get fooled by that. It appears to be lower than it actually is. And if we throw in all the driver assists, it's going to be at 60. Yeah, sport assist 29.4. And safety is 36. $12,360. Yeah, that's what I sort of suspected after going through all the parts. This thing is really cheap. This thing is really cheap. It's light. It's got a great engine to build upon. Yes, there's valve float. I guess that's gonna be the only smaller issue, although of course you can swap in better cams and that'll get rid of that. And let's check out its performance now. So 7.5 seconds 0 to 100 is faster than the Nubanu 420 FR. .7, so that is quicker than the previous car we've looked at, despite being down like 60 horsepower. and a 233.4, so that's 4 seconds faster than the Nubanu 420 FR. And not only is this thing down like 60 horsepower, it's also $5,000 cheaper. And I would argue that this is going to be quote-unquote better to mod because it's so light. Like if you add another 30 horsepower or so to this motor, it's going to make much more of a difference than adding 30 horsepower to the previous car we've seen. And how about running costs? It's actually relatively cheap, or among the cheaper ones we've seen so far, although the differences aren't so big. Except for the very cheapest car we've seen so far to run, that was the Avlov, and it cost just over $2,000 in running costs. So there is that. Okay, so I'm actually liking this one. It's light, it's cheap, and you know, pretty much any mod you make is gonna make this thing noticeably faster. But we have one more car to be looking at today, and that is the Tassale Mark II. Ooh, okay, so another year 2000, but this thing looks like 2011 or so, 2010. Yeah, this does not look era correct, but it looks good. Let's see what it's made of. It's a 2-seater with premium interior. It's got an aluminium monocoque, it's got fiberglass panels, a 6-speed manual gearbox, and the wishbones all around. The engine is a 2.3 liter inline-6, revving up to 8,000 RPM and making 200 horsepower. So let's start by looking at that. That is a flat torque curve. It doesn't make a whole lot of torque, but 90% of the torque is available basically anywhere. Really high bore-to-stroke ratio. Once again, stroking the engine would be a pretty effective way of making more power. The pistons are sort of on the edge though. They're starting to reduce reliability. The engine is full aluminium with 4 valves per cylinder and VVL, so we got that VTEC. Cast conrods, and they're not making any problems, but the low friction cast pistons are. Yeah. Okay. And this does have +7 quality into the bottom end, and still the pistons are prone to failure, or somewhat anyway. This is still like greenish yellow. So it's not that bad yet. 73 VPL profile is pretty aggressive, 31 km profile is not. Overall, I'd say that there's still a little bit more left in this, even if you keep it NA. We got a performance intake with 400 per cylinder configuration, all the way leaned out in an 8,000 RPM rev limit. We got 2 blue headers, 2 straight through mufflers. Let's have a listen to this thing. Very high idle. Oh yeah, it doesn't sound very healthy when it hits that rev limiter. So 6-speed manual, we've seen that viscous limited slip diff. 205mm sport tires all around, 17-inch alloy rims. 17-inch alloy rims on a budget sports car is A little unusual, I think. But that's okay. Vented discs all around, no brake fade whatsoever. How much wheel spin do we make? Oh, 22.6%. Fully clad on the tray. Lots of front wing angle. Not so much in the rear. And then more than enough cooling airflow and some brake airflow as well. All driver assists. Premium interior standard CD. Entertainment and advanced safety. Air suspension. Now that's a new one. I don't think that's something you'd necessarily see on a budget Japanese sports car. Although correct me if I'm wrong. Adaptive dampers and semi-active sway bars. And then we have a pretty stiff suspension setup, so pretty sporty, low, and wow, basically no roll angle whatsoever. So I expect this thing to be quick. For whatever reason, it also uses like not very much fuel at all. Let's see what this does on the quarter mile. I expect this to be very fast. Indeed, it does a 14.3, which I think is the quickest time yet. And then on the automation track, oh yeah, the downforce is gonna come in handy, and so are the really good cornering Gs. $221.7. The fastest car before that we've seen was the Avlov with a 224.4, and this is 2.7 seconds faster. That's a lot. How about running costs? How is this thing so cheap to run? I mean, it doesn't use very much fuel for whatever reason. But it's gonna be on the more expensive side, comparatively speaking, right? Actually, it's not that bad. Like, how do you do a car like this with like aluminum monocoque, fiberglass panels, a 2.3 liter straight six with +1 quality here, more quality there, no quality here, okay? And then air suspension and like a little bit of quality in almost every section here. Actually, no, just the suspension, gearbox, and tires. A little bit of help, but well, this is a proper sports car. I don't think it looks error correct, but apart from that, I can't really say anything really negative about this car, except for the fact that if you wanted to mod it, the first thing you need to do is get new pistons. So right, I think that's gonna do it for today's episode. Let me know which one of these three cars you like most, and tomorrow I'll be reviewing the final 4 entries for this community challenge, and then on the weekend we're gonna try to determine a winner. Okay, so see you tomorrow. Goodbye.